Hello and welcome back.
Welcome back, XYZers. It's been a hot minute
We don't
since
need to
we've
talk about that.
recorded.
We don't need to focus on the absence. We are here now, and that's what
We're
matters.
here now. We've
Yeah,
had a rough winter and technical issues. We're here now.
we're
And
here.
and so I invited my friend Susie
Yes, I'm very
to
excited.
our podcast. My friend Susie is with us, and we're going to chat about exploring aging and elder care and kind of the evolution of how we view aging in our culture, how we support loved ones now, and kind of like, all the things we do. And we talk about our various generations. So, with that, I would like to welcome Susie Sarkisian, and I will let you introduce yourself and all the great work that you're up
Well,
to now and all your work that you've done in the past that's led you up to this moment.
sure. Thanks for having me and for pronouncing my last name the right way. Um, so, Susie Sarkisian, yes, I am. I made up a title for myself. I am what I call a family support coach.
Hmm.
I worked in senior living in a big fancy assisted living for 12 and a half years as a director of family services. And that meant my whole job was supporting the family members. And usually, when you think of a senior living facility, it's usually about the resident. And I got the unique job of taking care of the family members. And about 2.5 years ago, I moved and made my own business coaching family members
Hmm.
based on my years of experience, based on my professional training as a certified coach, and my personal experience. My dad had Lewy body dementia. So I took all those three, put them together, and made a business. So
Hmm.
I'm a female business owner.
And we
And
love that.
That
Yes,
I know.
wonderful.
it's very Generation X of you.
Yeah, you know what? And I have to tell y'all, I don't know the difference in Generation XYZ. I get all that mixed up. You can tell me 100 times. It's like trying to know the difference between a second cousin and a first cousin once removed. I, d- I don't know which generation I am, but I love the fact that you're taking three that are in a row and getting everyone in conversations because I love that stuff. I think there are definitely myths or preconceived notions about people from the next generation up or the next generation down, or maybe even within your own that can be busted through
Hmm.
conversation.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's a lot of
exactly
what
what we're
coaching
here to
is
do.
helping people with conversations.
And I'm sure you even see that to some extent with your work with families through just generational misconceptions or understanding or kind of mindsets based on either lived experience or just sort of what's the cultural norm for their generation.
Uh-huh.
I know when I was facing supporting an aging adult, my mother,
Okay.
I was in a weird position because I was in my late 30s and through my 40s.
Mm.
So a lot of my peers are now dealing with what I was dealing with years ago.
Mhm.
Truly sandwich generation, right? Because I was raising very young children at that point in time. And so when your services started evolving, I was like, where was Susie when I needed her?
The number one thing people say is, "Where were you X amount of, a little while
Yeah.
ago?" Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been following your work and championing you from the sidelines, Susie.
Well,
So we're
thank
so
you.
glad to have you
Thank
here.
you.
Because it's a very important service that you're providing for
Well,
sure.
probably similar to what you went through, Mary. So here you are you were in your 30s and 40s and metaphorically get hit by a train, right? So all of a sudden you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought I was raising my kids and now I'm handling my mom. So many people aren't aware or wish they had support. And so
Uh-huh.
when I figured out, wait, I could be that person for people, I went, this is a no brainer. I don't care if I don't make any money at it. I know it's what I'm supposed to do.
Uh,
And the more I can spread the word and help people, I'm like, when I finish a coaching call and someone says, "Oh my gosh, I feel so much better." I'm like, "Okay then."
yeah. Job
Right?
done.
Yeah.
It's a lot to navigate for sure. But let's just rewind for a
Yep.
minute. You started your career with working with elderly generation, what, 20 years ago or so?
Well, I was always working with teenagers before that. I thought
Oh,
teenagers were
interesting.
my
Mm.
thing. I worked with runaways, I worked with foster children, and one day I was in court from a kid who had threatened my life in a shelter I worked in, and I kind of went, I'm not so sure I believe in them anymore, and they don't deserve me to work with
Mm.
them if I didn't believe in
Mhm.
them. So I left.
Uh,
Backwards fell into working with seniors, and at that point we'd gone through what happened in my own family, and I went, this is where I'm supposed to be.
This
Mm.
makes sense now.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, right? So
Yeah.
and so, I know personally when we were kind of going through what we were going through with my mom, that was really sort of the beginning of not the early days, but more prevalence of assisted living type facilities popping up 20
Mm-hmm.
years
Mm-hmm.
versus now what we're seeing a lot more,
Every new
right?
construction you see, right?
So I wonder if you can kind of walk us through your perspective, what that evolution has looked like over the past 20 years and maybe how people's mindsets have changed or haven't changed or kind of where we were then and where we are now, just based
About
on the
assisted
various
living.
generations that you worked with. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is, so like I'm coaching a gentleman right now who's 88 years old, and he is going to keep his wife at home no matter what. And she has very advanced dementia, and he can afford to bring in every possible service. And it doesn't matter how bad it gets, he's going to keep bringing in people to help in the home. And he says, I'm not moving my wife to a nursing home. And I've been coaching him for over a year, and I keep saying, let me tell you what a nursing home is, and let me tell you what an assisted living is. That's a huge misconception. People of that generation who are 88 picture being in a nursing home where you've got a sheet, that pulls between you
Yeah.
and the next guy or whatever. And he thinks his only other option is to put her into one of those settings. And so there's that generation of people that aren't quite aware of what, or may not be aware of what how an assisted living differs from a nursing home. Night and day, nursing homes tend to be paid for through your Medicaid dollars, Medicare if you're coming from a hospital for up to 100 days, and then privately paid assisted living is private pay. And unfortunately, that tends to eliminate a certain amount of our population.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's nice to think that it's there for people who can afford to get help when they need it, but it really, the reality of it is it's not for people who can't afford it, assisted living. And assisted living can be beautiful, glamorous, tail hour every day. It can be basic, like, when you used to buy a car and you had to roll down the windows. It can be a very basic assisted living at a lower price point. It can be fancy at a high price point when your champagne comes at your non-alcoholic champagne gets delivered at 5 o'clock, right? So there's some education around what the different choices are for people. And there are way many more choices now. There's ones that you can buy into. They're called a CCRC. There's just so many different options. There's even a home setting. There's people that take homes, like a house, and make it a 5-person community. So there's big box. There's home settings of assisted livings. They get a license like that. There's so many options to meet different needs.
So the home setting, I have a little bit of background work with an organization working with adults with intellectual disabilities. So I know that's like a similar model, either through an organization or sometimes individuals are setting that up. So that's interesting. I didn't realize that existed for
Yeah.
our
There's
elders.
so many different things out there. So some of my work with people is around educating them or just letting them know they have choices.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to the point of the expense associated with assisted living. I think that's one of the generational differentiators on how some of this is viewed. So I'll speak for myself, which is more of the millennial generation. Like we might not be quite there yet with our family members
Right.
entering into this stage of life, but in some cases we are. I think our primary concern is not so much about them going there or them needing care or the acceptance of that being a phase of life. It's the financial strain of it all. It's the fact that you come out of college knowing you're going to have to somehow set aside like potentially up to 15 years of money to make sure your parents have somewhere to go. And like it's a different kind of concern. And it kind of takes you out of this emotional place and very much into a pragmatic financial, like, all right, I'm planning for, like you said before, sandwich generation, raising young kids, trying to hope one day they get to school or do something. And then you're also knowing you have this massive expense on the horizon. And
Well,
if you don't have the money to do that, then you have to make the plan for how are you going to have them come live with you? How are you going to ensure their safety and health and happiness through to the end? Like it feels like a very pragmatic challenge. And maybe that's not generationally different. Maybe every generation feels that. But I think because of the, introduction of assisted living in the last 2.5 decades, like I think it's unique to the millennial experience.
I think it's like a lot of things in our society we're discussing it more.
Yeah.
right? So I think it's more top of
Yeah.
mind versus I think with it's XYZ, the boomers?
Yes.
The elderly generation now, that have now, like, they didn't really talk about it
Yeah.
as much, right? And so it's then what I do see consistent from kind of my own personal lived experience and those of a lot of my friends who are facing
Uh-huh.
these decisions now is that it mostly takes some kind of crisis situation to force the decision.
Can happen. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
There's,
Um,
like, a lot of pre-work done, laying the groundwork, initiating the conversations, but that it's not always,
Look,
frequently,
most people,
some kind of
right.
thing,
Pushes you there.
some
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of crisis, a hospitalization that goes to long-term rehab that then will go into assisted
That
living.
can be very common. And when people say to me, oh, my mom really doesn't want to move, my response is don't try to convince her. Validate the fact that she doesn't want to move.
Mm.
Right.
I get it, mom. I wouldn't want to move either. And I wish we weren't in this situation. I get it. You built this house. You raised us in this house. Dad's buried in the backyard, whatever the scenario
Yeah.
is. Validate it. And that helps to move through it. A
Mm,
lot of times people think their job is to convince their parent. Convince. And then convince is a bad word. I have two bad words. One is convince, and the other one is put. So when
mm,
Uh,
someone says, I put my mom somewhere, I'm like, let's just take that word away.
right.
right,
Right.
but that's a very telling clue on the mindset.
Yeah.
It's a clue on the mindset, but it's look, that's been around. That phrase, I put
Yeah.
my mom in a
Yeah.
place, has been
Yeah,
around for years. People say it without thinking about it. So
Yeah.
correct.
they may mean it well, but just an automatic, right?
Yeah.
Right, but I
Yeah.
think it may be laced with some guilt, failure. This was not the expectation,
Right.
Mhm.
at least probably with the boomers for sure. And then I think our Xers are a little bit more open, right? And that what we're hoping is that as we have these conversations and a better understanding of all the different types of support that are out there for folks, and ways to fund that, right? Because
Yeah.
there's long-term care insurance that people can think about. So we can kind of walk through um, all of that. I just think it's really interesting to unpack from a
It
generation
is.
perspective. I have another experience, a person in an older generation caring for their elderly parent and absolutely refuse to put in
Mhm.
any kind of assisted living, but the dynamic was not healthy for either person with their loved one in the home. And the loved one in the home probably would have loved system like the socialization. It would have but it just couldn't even be discussed. Like that was just not even an option. Where I think that maybe
Because of
that's
the caregiver?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the
So that's what I
caregiver
would love
had
to
a
hear from your perspective. Do you see like how does age, culture? Let's talk about culture, right?
yeah,
Talk about that.
culture meaning like different cultures, people from different countries?
Yeah, people from different cultures, like what are their, views on keeping generations together and family together and kind of dispelling some of
Yeah.
those
And
obstacles.
what does
Yeah.
our culture say about taking care of your elders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the big $1,000,000 question, the elephant in the room thing, right? So
Right.
so there are some cultures that would never in a million years, no matter what, have their loved one live somewhere else. There's some cultures that really honor their elders.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we had where I lived once, we had one woman who was from India. And the only time in 12 years I'd seen anyone from India, and she had moved in after post a surgery, and it was just a short-term thing. And she had a family member at her bedside every day for around the clock for 40 days. Now, this
Mhm.
wasn't a hospital, wasn't a setting that wasn't an acute setting, but they were betraying their culture.
Right.
And I hope I don't sound generalist, but it was just this is an observation. They could
Yeah.
not have left if one person left, the next person had to be there. And then as soon as their mom was well enough to leave, and that's not what an assisted living is designed for. They're not designed
No.
for 45-day
Yeah.
stay. But it was fascinating to me from their culture because this was their elder who they honor. And then where do we stand as Americans, right? And
Mhm.
you're right. When someone says, my mom now lives in a blank community, is there guilt with that? Is there, wow, I didn't add on to my own house. I wish I could
Mhm.
have moved her in, but we have too many steps. Or I don't want to move them in. I want to protect my nuclear family. Is that okay to say?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
again, as a coach, My job is not to tell someone what to do. My job is to let them say, here's what I'm doing. And this is how I want to do this, and to get them there without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
What does our culture say about our elders? I I don't think I could answer that, even though
Yeah.
this is what I work with all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think different in the caregiving culture, in the caregivers that work in facilities, you'll see certain populations that work there. Again, it's their honor to care for an elderly person. There's other people, it's a duty. So different cultures view it differently.
That's an interesting perspective. The
Caregiving.
paid
Yeah.
caregiving
The
staff.
people
How
who work there,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I've seen some caregiving agencies that distinguish themselves. I just talked to a woman in Florida. Her caregiving agency is all Russian speaking. Okay. And she said her clients want other Russian speaking, so sometimes they're able to even, and it seems like strange that you can delineate it that way, but she
Right.
does. So there's people here who are from other countries who only want people who speak their language.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a reality. There needs to be a certain comfort level with that, right? But
Huh.
I wouldn't even know what to say the American culture is towards our elders. I don't know if I could answer that. What would you all
It
say?
probably varies. Yeah.
Yeah, it's too nuanced, and it's exactly what we're talking about. It varies by generation, it varies by
My
demographic,
family.
and yeah, and the family structure, and the family history, and the
Mhm,
dynamic. Like it's all of those things are so in play
mhm.
that yeah, you can't have a singular take on it. I think I would personally feel confident saying I don't think Americans at large have the same level of reverence or honor for elderly as other cultures might.
Think about it. Think about how many times you'll see someone driving and you're someone else they'll say, "Oh, is that an old person?"
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah,
We may or may not joke, "Oh, look, there's an old person," whatever.
yeah.
And our culture kind of has a little bit of a throwaway culture to it.
Yes,
But if
yeah,
I know Mary plays pickleball, I play pickleball. How many times have you gotten out on a court and you see someone who looks older and looks maybe bent over and you go, "Huh, this is going to be easy." And then they whoop your butt, right? Oops,
yeah,
sorry. But you can't judge a book by its
yeah,
cover, right?
yeah,
And our culture maybe has a little bit of the throwaway to elders, or
yeah,
they don't know what they're doing thing, and then you learn otherwise.
right.
Yeah. I have a Rose story when I first started playing pickleball.
You have a what?
Rose story. It's exactly that. I
Yeah.
showed up. I'm in my, underarm. Like I've just got all the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. I'm playing against Rose, who has the tight set gray hair. She has what I call her Kohl's sweatshirt. It has like the hand applique
Yeah.
cardinal sitting on with like plaid
Yeah.
heart appliques, the gray polyester pants, and the taupe like orthopedic shoes. I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna like
This one.
Rose kicked my ass."
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
So that's a real life thing that you
yeah.
experience.
Mhm.
Oh, all the time. There's an indifference and there's a dismissal, I think, totally. And it is very ingrained. I don't think you're not conscious of it, but you do it 100 times a day. When you're
Exactly.
driving, when you're in line, when someone's taking too long. And then you are just like, oh, just because they're old. And it's so, I mean, that I think is the only clue I'd say that Americans have a different approach to elderly.
No, you're right, Shannon. You're exactly right. So maybe we start off saying we're not sure what Americans feel, but maybe we did just arrive at
Yeah.
something. There's something about that.
There's something there that gives us an arrogance in the middle generations
Mhm. Mhm. And arrogance.
that
Yeah.
you slowly lose as you get older, for sure,
Mhm.
but it's there long enough that I
Mhm.
think it's part and parcel to kind of just societal behavior.
So we touched a little bit on like changing family structures. And
Mhm.
so just interested on your perspective on how maybe you've seen over the past couple of decades the impact of that, or like what do you see down the line in terms of caring for elderly? So meaning higher rate of divorce, blended families, step families, long distance, relocations, all the things. And
Mhm.
speaking of, you're going
Mhm.
back home, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that what's happened is a little bit with our nuclear families. Sometimes someone will come to me and say, "I'm an only child," or I've got this brother who's estranged and da da da. And I think that what's happening is when somebody needs that support around them because they're aging or changing with age, that we have to think broader. We have to think outside the box. So it's not just mother, father, brother, sister. It might be niece, neighbor, best friend who become the family around someone. It might be.
Uh,
And I think that, when there are things like estrangements, which happen all the time, sometimes when I work with a family member, I say, well, let's just pretend like John's not ever going to get involved. I don't want to waste your time
right.
on thinking John's going to plug in. So let's just take John off the table and let's decide who has offered to be a part of this picture with you. And let's design a new family or team or whatever you want to call it, Team Shannon. Who has
Right.
said they would be there for Shannon during this time?
Mm.
I think there's been a redefining of who would be the family, and it's more and more common, and it's not my place to judge why someone's estranged. And I didn't grow up in someone's household, right?
Right.
Right.
I have had a client recently who had a terrible childhood with her mother. She says, my mother was a terrible, terrible person. My brother has left the family because my mom's a terrible person. I'm the only one around, blah, 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 blah. And yet she's moving past that and plugging in to be there for her mom. And,
Uh,
again, some people have had super hard relationships, and she lives in Oregon. Her mother is in, I think, New York, and she needs
mm,
that distance. She said, I will visit her once a year, and that's it. So I guess my point being that, everyone's had a whatever story that got them to where they
mhm.
are now. And then it's about understanding how much are you willing to do and how much you're not willing to do. And whatever you decide is right for you.
And I think all this is so, like, it's so clarifying, but I just knowing what I've seen, like seeing you and my mom and everyone, with grandma going through her journey, like seeing enough of that through my own life, like those conversations aren't always easy to have,
Mhm.
whether it's siblings or cousins or nieces, nephews,
Mhm.
so I imagine a lot of what you do is maybe helping people have those
Uh-huh.
conversations or preparing them to have those conversations. I mean, because especially if there's estrangement or distance or something involved there, like that's tough. I mean, I even think, my father went through a, pretty acute, cancer treatments, and I was living abroad at the time,
Mhm.
and I had, many fortunes there, and that my siblings were local and able to help. But even that, where it's a positive dynamic, mostly,
Yep.
I felt
Yep.
terrible I couldn't be there. Like, even that presented a lot of challenges. You're like, and most of it's in your head, most of it's guilt related, most of it's longing and all of that. But like, even in a positive situation, largely drama free, it was hard. And
Uh-huh.
so I have to imagine when you get to a point where you have all these conflicting personalities and everyone grows up with a different version of their own parent. And so all of that emotionality comes to the table. Like, that is really hard to mitigate and to work through. I mean, that is probably a large part of what you do. Like, are there any major themes you see, that come out of those conversations or tips you can share, like to help people prepare for those hard combos?
Well, there's the hard conversation of asking your parents, like, what their wishes are, asking your loved one, like, let me
Yeah.
know how you want me to respond in this type situation. That's one type of approach is to say, I always say, ask permission to have a hard conversation. Hey, mom, can you and I talk about something that's bothering me? I want to have a hard conversation with you rather than surprising, but to say, hey,
Mhm.
can we talk about this? Because I don't want to do something that you don't want me to do if you can't make a
Mhm.
decision for yourself. That's very non-threatening sounding, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I'm coming in and taking over your bank account and I'm taking your car keys and
Yeah.
you're out of here. It's more like, hey, let's talk about this now, just in case I have to make a decision someday,
Yep.
some night, right?
Yep.
So I think one thing is to asking permission to do that.
Mhm.
And then on the topic of the different roles that people play in a family,
Mhm.
what's weird is I love that stuff. But when you've got like a one sibling that does this and one sibling,
Yeah.
so often I hear people say, "Well, yeah, I wish I could have had you, but I do everything." People say, "I do
Mhm.
everything." And I say, "Oh, so you're the heavy lifter." And they go, "Yes, yes, I'm the heavy lifter." So what I've done is I've named the different roles within families just based on my experiences and in my own family. And what I like to see happen is people to understand that each role is important. So you were what I call that when your dad was sick that year, you're what I call a far away, right? I'm a far away.
Mm.
I get what being a far away is. But if
Yeah.
I was right there, I will go with my mom to every single appointment. I would have been at everything. But I was a
Right.
far away and still am. And I got annoyed with my brothers who were close by and not doing what I thought they should do. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why aren't you going? Why aren't you going? Why aren't you going?
Right.
Well, what was my brother doing? He was opening his wallet. over and over and over. He paid for everything, but he didn't go to things. I'm like, so I wanted him to do it my way, right? I couldn't do it his way. I couldn't afford what he could afford. So part of what I do when I work with siblings and different family members is try to get them to see the validity in each perspective because they all can work together. So even as a far away, what I do right now is I talk to my mom, who's 92, once, maybe twice a day. And that's way more than any of the other people who are close by, but that's where my support is.
Right.
So I might not be there driving her somewhere, but she knows she can call me to say, hey, my computer's doing this. What do you think? So
Yeah.
so there's validity in every single role, and people get very caught in it should be done like this. Why aren't you doing it like that? Well, that's your
Right.
perspective. Let's see what their perspective is.
So,
That was a
Susie, you would not
long-winded.
like the name that I had for some of the people in my orbit,
That,
which was Monday morning quarterbacks.
oh, that's another one. Oh, I love that. I'll add that to my.
I'm not sure that's the role I want
I
to get
don't think
called.
that's the spirit that
Yeah.
that you're approaching this, but
But you're describing what she's describing. You're saying, you would get frustrated because some others would sit around and then show up or write to you and say, why didn't you do it this way? Or what about this? And what about
or
that?
just saying, right?
Right. And
Like,
you had been in the
I pretty
trenches.
much like was
Yeah.
pragmatic and
Yeah.
like to kind of a doer. Right? Doesn't matter who
Yeah.
was feeling what or doing what, but that was what I would call the people on
I
my team.
love that one. If I can steal that, I will add that to my. I have
I
some
don't think
talks that I do.
that's-
One of my
I don't-
talks is about
I
those
think
roles.
your approach is much healthier, Susie.
But it's okay. I mean, Monday morning quarterback is part of it. That is a lot of what
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
And that's what I did to my
Yeah.
brother for a couple of years. I'm just like, why
Right.
won't he go over there? My mom was sick recently, and I'm like trying to deliver some food to her. And I can't remember why she couldn't get out. My brother was out of town. I'm like, oh, why won't he go over there? He was out of town. What did he do when he got home? This is a brother that spends money. He bought an entire CVS store and delivered it to her apartment. But I'm like, just go. You don't have to send her 12 COVID tests. Just go.
Right.
I guess it's loosely framed around like people's love languages. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
you could kind of make a correlation there.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's what strength are you bringing? But what I really like about kind of the
What strength are you bringing? Good.
validating and then sort of the characterizing of everyone's value, like, because that is what it is. They are bringing something. You might not see it as valuable as yours, but that's also like, but knowing everyone has a role to play and that role is valuable
Yes.
is a nice way to think about it. I mean, you have to force, I think you're in the moment, force yourself to zoom out to get there, but I like that. I like that thinking.
Well, sometimes
Yeah.
I'll just say, well, do you want to be the one that helps her in the bathroom? Like you're mad that your
Right,
sister
right.
or your sister is picking her up for church too early in the morning, but do you want to
Right.
help her in the bathroom or not? If you don't,
Yeah.
then let your sister do it and let your sister take
Right.
her to church.
Let it go. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things you brought up that I think is really profound to talk about is the having that initial conversation about like your loved one's wishes. And I think I learned it pretty early. I think my mom, even though she passed unexpectedly, she was a big, at least on paper, I don't know if she ever emotionally wanted to do this, but she was like, let's have the conversation about what I want. Like it's a gift to give your family, to know wishes, and then to actually have that very, it's a morose conversation. It's a little depressing, but to really sit there and talk about, this is the kind of thing I want if I get sick, this is the kind of thing I want if I pass away, suddenly, and the type of services I want, and like really just put it down on paper. It makes everyone's life so much easier, and so that you could focus on the celebration of the moment and get into the grieving and the, like, how often do you see that actually happening in your work though? Like, or are there maybe even generations or cultures that are really good at this and those that aren't?
Well, I mean, some people come to me and and I'll say, do you have this, and this line? Yep, we've had all those conversations.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. Then there's some people say, we don't know where to start. So I had
Right.
a family of 3 siblings that came to me and said, our parents live in their own house. We're watching mom change. We're watching dad cover for her and care for her. Our parents never told us anything. That's just how their family operated. They go, we don't know how to start. So I literally started working with this family on one of the daughters is a medical professional. And they had no idea if their parents had healthcare proxy or any of those things. So I just started working with them on beginning those conversations. And by the end of the call, they said, okay, or the first call, they said, all right, here's what we're going to do for a plan. So-and-so is going to talk to mom. So-and-so is going to take a walk with dad. They had this sort of thing drawn out. And then the next time we got together, she said, yep, I've had my dad's healthcare proxy and I can see his medical record. So they did all these, they started these conversations slowly. And the approach that they liked also was, we feel like we're not being good children if we're not supporting you. We're not saying you need it, but we want to make sure we do what you want. And so then as fast forward, time went on, when it came time for big changes in their life, they had already had those conversations. And I just saw her recently and she said, you have no idea how much that helped us to have those conversations early. So some families don't talk about it. I never knew anything. I didn't know my parents made money. We just didn't talk about it, And then there's other families where it's completely transparent. But like what you talked about earlier, people are starting to talk about these things more. People are starting to say, by the way, here's my obituary picture. See, I was at someone's house on Sunday.
I think
And
some
she
of it's a
said, she goes,
byproduct
that's
that
my
we're
obituary.
living longer,
What's
right?
that?
So I think some of it's a byproduct of we're living longer, right? So like Generation X we're seeing what we're dealing with our parents, right? So there's a little bit of a playbook, or like, how do we write our own playbook for when we're at this time too? That maybe, folks that are in their 80s and 90s now, they just didn't have that just from the pure life experience. Like people just didn't live as many people.
Mm-hmm. And I've had people who said, we have no idea how our parents would ever pay for something when they started their conversations only to find out that they had long-term care insurance and they had never told their children. So their children were doing like what you were talking about, Shannon, thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to pay for it? Da, da, da. Then when they started these conversations, the parents are like, oh yeah, we've got 2 or 3 policies. Whoa,
Wow.
we didn't know. You didn't tell us. We didn't ask. It was that sort of hush-hush thing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, in terms, I mean, I know you can't give like direct advice, but generally, when's a good time in somebody's life phase that they should start looking into things like long-term care?
Yeah. I can't give advice, but I will tell you just today, my husband and I were at our financial advisor and cobbler's shoes or whatever that expression is. I don't have
Yeah.
long-term care insurance. And I said, I think this is foolish not to. He said 60s is when people really, if
Oh,
you wait
interesting.
too late, I talked to a family last week. The parents were 82 and 83. And they said, can we get long-term care insurance? I said, no, you can't right now.
Right.
You missed that window. So I think it's like 50s and 60s and generally when
Yeah.
people.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting because I'm even thinking, so that's going to spawn some conversations. Because I was even thinking, like, am I too late to get it? Is this
Yeah.
something we should have thought back, like, in my 40s and
Well, and
make
now
sure?
there's new products too.
Yeah.
It's changing. That environment has just changed a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There's these hybrid things and all this stuff. But yeah.
It's so
'Cause
much.
none of us
You
think
have
we're
to
going to
work
get
out
old.
here.
None of us think we're going to need it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's the other point. You said we're living longer. I think it's not just that we're literally living longer, it's that we're living well longer. So the expectations of what being old have completely shifted. I mean, we've talked about this a few times in our podcast, I know, but growing up, and I look at pictures now and it's mind blowing. Like my grandparents were relatively young, actually, like in their early 50s or so
Mhm.
when I have waking memory of them. So they were grandparents, maybe even in their late 40s,
Mhm.
and they looked so old by today's standards. And like we talk about it all the time, like my mother-in-law talks about how her mom and her mother-in-law looked, they were literally 51 years old, but dressed to what we could now would say like an 85-year-old
Right.
person would dress
Right.
like. It's just so different now. And like my kids though, like they always ask us how old we are and we're like, we're 40, 41, 42. And they're like, oh my God, that's so young, so young. Like there's just such a difference. And that's beautiful, I think.
Mhm.
But then, like you said, you've got these people well into their 80s kicking your asses on the
Mhm.
pickleball court
Mhm.
and having these expectations to live a full life right up until the end. Like, and that I don't think was always part and parcel of the
Yeah,
culture
that was
either.
true.
It was like you had kids, they got out of the house, and then you kind of became elderly. It's like,
They also smoked like packs of cigarettes and
true.
Yeah.
drank like Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's the attitude around aging, right? So
Yeah.
I think I used this in a social media post, but one time I was getting ready to serve pickleball and guy beside me like had just messed up and he goes, "Getting old sucks." And the other woman on the other side who was in her 70s goes, "I don't know nothing about that." Good for you. Good for you. Because, and she was probably older than him, but she had an
Yeah.
attitude of, I don't think, and people say it all the time, getting old sucks, getting old sucks.
Yeah.
Well, every now and then they say that, I go, hey, listen to you. Because when you're putting that out there, I kind of think you're carving a
Yeah.
path, right?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know. My left knee is telling me something else.
It's telling you it's going to rain.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of aging as much as, I think there's a duality to it I've come to love and appreciate.
Uh-huh.
I hate some of it. I don't like that. I sit and stare at my screen from like inches away. My eyes are deteriorating. Like those physicality pieces of it, those are annoying. But
Yeah.
on the other hand, I love what you gain every year. Like the wisdom of aging, the permission to not give a shit
The
that you
freedom.
get every year. Like these things matter and lead you to that woman's mindset, I think. And that I love. That really makes me a fan of
That's
aging.
what we're
Yes, I'm aspiring for that.
Well, Susie, this has been such a wonderful conversation. Thank you for taking time.
You're
Is there
welcome.
anything that we miss that you would, you feel important to share or bring up?
I was looking at some of the questions you gave me, and there is, if you had said, are you going to do the rapid fire thing or no? But you
Oh,
had,
yeah, we
Oh, yeah,
can.
we can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah. All right, so go ahead, rapid fire me.
Okay. Let's start with the one myth about elder care.
So this is the only part I really did answer. The one myth about elder care is that so many people think that when they say the word hospice or they put someone on hospice, that they just nailed their coffin,
Right.
when actually they've done the opposite. They have extended someone's life. Hospice
Yeah.
means you're getting more care and often makes them live longer. Now, does sometimes hospice come in at the very end? Absolutely. But so many people feel like I can't put my mom on hospice
Mhm.
because they think they've just decided someone's dying. I say that's a myth and that's wrong. It's
I
if
agree.
you
Love
flip
that.
it to giving someone help, so you are not deciding they're going to die if you put someone on
No.
hospice, and that's what I think is just a preconceived thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I know this is rapid fire, but I want to touch on that because the hospice thing is, I think, so important. Talk about a taboo. I think it's, because the assumption is grandma's in hospice, it's going to be any minute now.
They think
And
they think it's like putting down your dog or something, right?
exactly. Like you just take them to the vet to
Right.
euthanize. And it's like, that's not the experience. And I've oddly enough just been reading a couple books in the last couple of weeks all about experiences that hospice caregivers and family members have gone through at that stage of life. And
Which book did you read?
God, I should know the name
By
of
the
it.
cute little nurse that has the
Yes, yes. She tells all the stories. Yes. We'll put it in the notes. But that one and then another one I had read, and I thought I was going to be really like emotional. It was going to be hard for me to read. I came out the other side of those books feeling so calm and like empowered and like, you know what? God forbid, or not God forbid, actually, God willing. Like I find myself or my loved one in a situation like this
the
because
in between. That was called.
yes, the
Yeah, the
in-between was the
in-between.
name of the book. Yes. It was just so lovely. And I've been doing like all this thinking about how like hospice is an act of love at the end of someone's life.
Mhm.
And I've seen all of my grandparents actually in it and how like the caregivers are angels on earth. And it's just this beautiful moment in
Yeah.
someone's journey to witness. And there's such power in it. And I hate that there's a stigma still there or a fear of it. And I'm glad that that's the one you chose to debunk.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think like to stay on our theme about generations,
Yeah.
I think over time that's going to change,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
as the hospice movement, continues to evolve and people understand it more, but
Yeah.
definitely like my parents' generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good one, Susie. Thank you for bringing that up.
You pick the next one.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
What conversation families should have sooner?
I think the sooner conversation would be kind of what we already said, just saying, tell me how you want me to respond in an emergency. Tell me what you want me to say in an emergency. And that's it. I mean,
like that.
And then what if they say, I'm playing devil's advocate, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you come across
Yeah.
all of it. I don't know.
Okay, do you want me to find a place for you to live? Do you want me how do you feel about having a tube put down your throat? Like just kind of pulling it out,
Probe
just being
them.
curious,
Okay.
curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you don't know.
And
Do
some
you
people are just avoidant altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, maybe the
But
answer
the
is I
reality may
trust yeah, maybe the answer is I trust whatever you decide. Okay, then you
that's a
know.
fair answer. Yeah.
Then you know
Yeah.
they trust whatever you decide.
Yep.
Yeah. Either way, it's information. So I guess that's good. Yeah.
Say a tip is, you know how people say that those promises, you're having a glass of wine on a Friday night and say, "Whatever you do, don't let me live
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
nursing
Yeah.
home." Like, those promises can become handcuffs.
Mm.
If if
I like that.
you've made a promise that you're never going to live somewhere outside the home, and now you're in your house and you're in a wheelchair and you're having to widen the doors and you bring in equipment because of a promise, when really that person's needs could be met somewhere else, and the person who's caregiving can visit and have good times together. So
Mm.
those promises are a hard I think the promise should be just promise me you won't forget about me.
Yeah.
Promise me you'll do what you think is right. Something like
Yeah.
that.
The best, yeah, make the
I
best
like that.
decisions in that moment
Mm.
because nobody has a crystal ball. Like,
No.
how can you?
Oh,
Those can't be true promises
right,
because how,
right,
No.
right.
No. Yeah. They're false promises.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Last one. One thing adult children should stop blaming themselves for.
Are they blaming themselves? What should they stop blaming themselves for? Well, you know what? I would say when people say I didn't really have a good relationship with my mom and I don't want to help her very much right now. I think that people blame themselves. They don't if they think they're not doing enough, but they're doing maybe that's because they didn't have a good childhood. A lot of people feel like I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing enough. And there's that enough. I'm like, what does enough look like?
Mm.
Right.
You're doing what you're capable of at this point. I had a girl say to me the other day, she said, I didn't like dad that much, but I really like dementia dad.
How interesting.
She
Yeah.
likes dementia dad. There's always that side of it. So I think it's when adult children blame themselves sometimes for not doing enough. And I would say, well, what is enough?
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well,
So
Susie,
interesting.
thank you.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you so much.
Yeah.
And although I didn't find you when I needed you, I'm so glad that we have you now. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And hopefully many others now know too that
yes.
there are people like yourself and resources like that out there to help guide through this like
Mhm.
inevitability that we'll all stumble upon. Right?
I do offer, I know this isn't a commercial, but I'm just telling you though that I do offer a free session if anyone just wants to see what
Oh,
it's like
Thank
to
you.
get that support.
Yeah.
And then they can say, yeah, I think I'm good, or yeah, I like more of
Yeah. I
this.
need
So I
more.
offer
Yeah.
that just to see what it's like. Um,
and if people want to get in touch with you, Susie, should we direct them to your LinkedIn page or can we follow up with the website that we can put in the show notes?
yeah, you're busting me for being bad about LinkedIn, aren't you? It's just my name at susiesarkisian.com. But yeah, my website, which is in the process of becoming more fancy looking. But yeah, it's
Perfect.
Wait, you were a social media queen there for a while. You have to
I
give yourself
know, I
a
know.
break.
And then I kind of burnt on it, and then a few things came. I'll get back into it.
It's good to take a
Well,
break
good.
every
Well,
once in a
take a break.
Yeah, you understand.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, Susie,
Thank
thank you.
y'all.
And
Thank
I
you so
hope to
much.
maybe see you on the pickleball court before you leave our
Yes,
general area if the snow ever melts.
I
So,
know, huh? All right. Well, thank y'all. I hope you have a good, what's today? Thursday, Wednesday. Have a good
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.